Sparks erupted as the strike found its mark, temporarily disrupting the villainous duo's ability to coordinate their advanced ship's systems. Aggregate, aboard the Ecliptica, reacted with fury, unleashing an experimental graviton beam, a weapon capable of distorting space itself. The beam's unearthly energy rippled toward the Peregrine, warping light and matter in its path. But the Ninth Legion's ship executed a brilliant countermeasure, as by venting plasma from its engines, the Peregrine created a field of ionized particles that deflected the graviton beam's trajectory. The abyss of space became a chaotic theater of light, shadows, and swirling energies. Recognizing the futility of brute force, the Ninth Legion turned the tide with strategic cunning. Analyzing the Ecliptica's movements and energy signatures, they identified a critical vulnerability in its propulsion systems. The Peregrine darted closer, evading point defense turrets with a serpentine grace, and launched a concentrated EMP strike. The villainous ship's advanced thrusters flickered and went dark. Drifting invulnerable, the Ecliptica resorted to its final weapon, a swarm of autonomous drones programmed to destroy on sight. The drones encircled the Peregrine like an angry hive, their laser arrays slicing through the void. But the Ninth Legion executed a bold gambit. They lured the drones into the debris field of a long-forgotten cosmic battle, a graveyard of twisted metal and derelict ships. Using the wreckage as cover, the Peregrine eliminated the drones one by one, turning the tide of battle completely. At last, the Peregrine unleashed a finishing blow. With its enemy immobilized and defenseless, the Ninth Legion targeted the Ecliptica's power core with a precision strike. A brilliant explosion lit the void as the Ecliptica succumbed, its advanced technology reduced to an expanding field of fragments and dissipating energy. As silence reclaimed the abyss, the Peregrine lingered for a moment, its hull battered but triumphant. The Ninth Legion had prevailed, though the Peregrine was severely damaged in the explosion. They had gotten closer to the edge during the fight though, so they were almost there, even if they were moving slower. Magic had returned to almost normal levels, but as they were about to teleport straight to the abyss, they were suddenly restrained. Triumvirate and Aggregate had survived the blast, as throughout the entire fight, they were discreetly luring the Ninth Legion to the edge, so they were able to summon a shield in the blast. Since magic wasn't completely back when the explosion went off, they were still injured. They teleport themselves and the Ninth Legion out of Peregrine since they were about to break free from the restraints anyways, and after the Ninth Legion temporarily merged into one being, wont, they started to fight. The rematch commenced without ceremony. Aggregate conjured a torrent of magically charged obsidian shards, each fragment humming with latent destruction. These shards spiraled toward wont, carving through space like sentient knives. But wont raised a hand, and with a sweep of arcane energy, turned the shards to gleaming feathers that disintegrated into light. The feathers scattered, forming glowing sigils in the void, a trap. Triumvirate roared, his three souls chanting spells in unison, weaving destructive forces that collided into the sigils, dispersing them in an explosive cascade of energy. The shockwave tore at reality itself, creating rifts that spilled the raw essence of creation into the void. Wont capitalized on the chaos, its form unraveling into a swarm of ethereal fragments that surged toward Aggregate and Triumvirate. The duo retaliated with twin streams of opposing energies, one a blistering wave of entropy, the other a harmonious arc of creation. The streams met Wont's swarm in a cataclysmic clash, bending space and time around them. Vergison itself seemed to quake as the forces collided. Aggregate, seizing a fleeting advantage, unleashed a pulse of dark magic that wrapped the battlefield in an unrelenting void. Within the blackness, Triumvirate channeled a cosmic storm, lightning crashing in a spectacle of raw power. But wont, adapting to the altered realm, folded its essence into a singular point, becoming a star-like spear that pierced the void. The spear erupted into brilliance, dispelling the darkness and scattering aggregate and triumvirate across the battlefield. Regrouping, the duo unleashed their ultimate technique, a celestial convergence that summoned a massive orb of energy, brimming with the collective force of countless dimensions. And you know what else is massive? The low taper fade mim. As the orb grew, the void itself seemed to recoil in anticipation of its release. But Nuent, resolute, drew upon its boundless magical essence. A sigil of impossibly intricate design materialized around its form, its complexity defying comprehension. With a motion both swift and deliberate, Nuent unleashed a pulse of pure stasis. The orb froze mid-expansion, its cataclysmic energy held in suspension. With a sweep of its arm, Nuent redirected the frozen orb back toward its creators. Aggregate and triumvirate, caught in their own trap, were consumed by the energy they had summoned. A colossal blast rang out, seemingly disintegrating the two. When the light had cleared, triumvirate lay unconscious, wounded all over, and burnt, while aggregate was struggling to use magic to heal himself. Nuent, exhausted and worn, began to charge up a fatal blow. Aggregate healed himself, and was about to do the same for triumvirate, but was out of energy, and watched as the Ninth Legion sent out one final move. Aggregate may have had time to save his only ally, but waited as being too risky, instead cowardly teleporting to the edge, being taken in by the void. Triumvirate seemed to regain consciousness, but could do nothing but watch as a piercing blast of pure energy collided into him, tearing his atoms off of his body in strings. Triumvirate was dead, and Nuent absorbed his soul. He merged his wavering spirit with Deodar Clip's, technically making a triumvirate with a member who themselves is a triumvirate, Deodar Clipseverate. Nuent got back into the battered remains of the peregrine, and flew it out into the edge. They went through thicker and thicker fog, all the way until there was zero visibility. After a few minutes, it was no longer completely grey outside, but pitch black from the denseness of the fog. After another few minutes, the fog gradually grew lighter, and then dispersed, putting them back at the orb where they entered from. The Thuot's member, Cephaversal Transmogrifier, and Aggregate were nowhere to be found, meaning they couldn't return to Vergison. The members who had come from Vergison were distraught, since this meant they wouldn't be able to go home. They considered separating from Nuent, but realized that doing so would not help them. Nuent was about to leave, also upset he hadn't gotten the reward of power the Thuot's member promised them, but he began to think that the reward was the members he picked up, as this did greatly increase his power. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw a note. He picked it up, and it was signed by the Thuot's member. It said that he had left with the Cephaversal Transmogrifier, but that if Nuent made it back, he could say a phrase to give them the reward. The phrase was written on the back of the paper, and he said it out loud. He felt a surge of power rush through his body, multiplying his power millions of times over. With this massive increase, he tried searching for Aggregate, but his spell had no effect, as if Aggregate was still powerful enough to hide from it. And you know what else is massive? The low taper fade mim. This must have meant he had also begun to increase his power, even if by much less than Nuent did. Nuent merged the peregrine with Thigh, and used it to track heavy amounts of power. He saw that there was a lingering trail of high power, which he followed. Eventually, the trail ended suddenly, with nothing but the faded symbol of Lanrit etched into nothingness. Nuent was angry that Aggregate was missing, but knew he had to continue onwards. Similarly to what he had done long before, Nuent put up an advertisement of sorts for new members. At first, not many showed up, but eventually, from all over the Cephaverse, he had recruited Gonzo the Great, Ypma, the color green itself, the shape of a hexagon itself, I Am Mean, Andrew Reynolds, Ludwig the Coop Alling, Fat Albert and the Trunchbull. Nuent didn't he know whether to start the 10th Legion, just merge with these people, or split back into the 9th Legion and have them join. He let the recruits vote, and they voted for the third option. Nuent was split back into the 9th Legion, with all the recruits joining. The 9th Legion got back into Thai to search, but there was nothing with much of any power in an extremely large distance from them, except for one spot. They travelled here and found Cardinal Crimson Rose Maroon Reddish colored Freddy the Fazbear name pending. Cardinal Crimson Rose Maroon Reddish colored Freddy the Fazbear name pending immediately started making himself depressed, and when he gets sad, he explodes. The 9th Legion now had to keep him happy enough for him to not explode. They told a knock-knock joke they stole from Sans, which made Cardinal Crimson Rose Maroon Reddish colored Freddy the Fazbear name pending slightly happier. Cardinal Crimson Rose Maroon Reddish colored Freddy the Fazbear name pending was about to explode, but this cheered him up enough to make him as happy as when the 9th Legion first found him. The 9th Legion didn't know what to do, but pulled up a picture of Margaret Thatcher. This picture was so awe-inspiring that Cardinal Crimson Rose Maroon Reddish colored Freddy the Fazbear name pending was nearly all the way back to stable happiness. If the 9th Legion did one more thing to make him happier, then he would be stable. They took too long thinking of what to do next though, ending this opportunity. The Margaret Thatcher picture then became alive and joined the 9th Legion, telling them what to do. She told them to ask Cardinal Crimson Rose Maroon Reddish colored Freddy the Fazbear name pending why he was getting depressed. The 9th Legion did this, and Cardinal Crimson Rose Maroon Reddish colored Freddy the Fazbear name pending revealed that he had dreams of being a dancer, but his friends bullied him for this. They told him that they could dance if they wanted to. They can leave his friends behind. 'Cause his friends don't dance, and if they don't dance then they're no friends of the 9th Legion. Cardinal Crimson Rose Maroon Reddish colored Freddy the Fazbear name pending realized this was the truth, and started to dance with the 9th Legion, putting him at 99% happiness. To get to the last 1%, the 9th Legion gave Cardinal Crimson Rose Maroon Reddish colored Freddy the Fazbear name pending Uber Secret Comic for free. This put Cardinal Crimson Rose Maroon Reddish colored Freddy the Fazbear name pending over the edge, and he became stable, joining the 9th Legion, averting the explosion crisis. Uber Secret Comic also joined. They all took a class on American history and became friends with the one word that could describe the nation of America, Asmefuchuafutafut. Asmefuchuafutafut joined the 9th Legion, and they got back in Thai. Since there were no sources of power nearby, Thai had to go on a journey. They randomly teleport Thai around the Safaverse, finally finding a substantial power source after hours. They went into the universe and saw a strange, disheveled man in a blue shirt. He was Steve. He then showed the 9th Legion a flint and steel, taking them to Thenether. Here were the villagers. They love crush and loaf. As a child, Steve yearned for the mines. This origin story was so sad that the tears produced by the 9th Legion were similar to a water bucket. Release. All of a sudden, an ender pearl that was his only one, was common and hot. This was dangerous, so Steve pulled out a strange object, explaining to the 9th Legion that it was a crafting table. Using the crafting table, Steve made blades for days, Kadoos hing the ender pearl away. They needed to figure out who was doing this, but when they looked, he ran away, so they could only see that his head was huge. Equipping themselves with boots of swiftness and diamond armor, full set, the 9th Legion and Steve used a sweet blade they found to chop down and eat two big red ones. This made them more powerful, letting them teleport to the one who threw the ender pearl. You ever wonder what happens when you mix hot lava and chicken? 'Cause I sure don't. Anyway, they found themselves in the stash. They looked and saw the attacker, a chicken jockey. The chicken jockey charged at them and started beating them up. They were about to die, but used a slime cube to stick the chicken jockey in place. They took this time to heal, but as soon as they did, the chicken jockey broke free and continued its rampage. It seemed like there was nothing they could do, but General Chungus fell from the sky and crushed the chicken jockey. General Chungus and Steve then officially joined the 9th Legion. They kept on teleporting around the Sephoverse the same way they were before, but it was getting more and more difficult to find anything of substantial power. After an entire day, they found one spot. Knowing that this method was extremely inefficient, they decided this would be the last one they go into using this method. When they went inside the universe where the power tracker was pointed to, they were in 2024 America. Donnie and Kamala were in a heated race for the presidency, but the day before Election Day, the Constitution suddenly got an amendment without anyone having written it. It stated that the Gleeks party must be recognized and have at least one candidate in each election. Reading this, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., the current president, ordered for a Gleek candidate to step forth. Godfrey G. Golden, a man with a green tie, then stepped forward. He started campaigning even though there was only a few hours left before voting. His campaigns were pretty terrible, mostly consisting of him and his 3 and 3/4 children talking about Italian brain rot and vaguely describing something called Gleeconomics. Somehow, every voter in the country then proceeded to accidentally put their vote for him, even though not one citizen was planning to vote for him. After winning the election in a landslide, he then used an executive order to stop recognizing November 6 to January 19 as days. Because of this executive order, he was instantly inaugurated as America's first president. The 9th Legion asked to meet him, and he personally allowed them to. They got along well, and the 9th Legion joined the Gleeks party. The Gleek force began growing within their bodies, until they had become pure Gleeks. This sent them to a higher plane of existence, where they and other pure Gleeks could reside. They talked to each other, and agreed to put all of their Gleek energy into Godfrey G. Golden. From this surge of Gleekiness, Godfrey G. Golden became the ultimate Gleek, transforming into his emerald bitten form. He took every other pure Gleek and formed the Gleek Council. The Gleek Council and the 9th Legion agreed to unite their groups together, forming the 9th Legion, although it still just went by the 9th Legion for short. The 9th Legion now started to think up a better method to search for power, and had to brainstorm. They finally came up with a new method, which was to connect Sephopedia to Thigh, and have it use all the available resources and data to come up with locations of universes that most likely had large amounts of power, which the 9th Legion would then teleport to. Using this method sped things up, and after going through a couple of suggested universes that ended up being duds, they finally found one good enough. Upon entering this universe, a big ol' red one charged at them. He ate them all, and they all died. The end. Okay, but FR, he did eat them all and they did all die. However, it was not the end, as a mythical voice named Plot Convience appeared and gave them a new member, a Cassius. Using a Cassius, they managed to kill the big ol' red one and come back to life, recruiting a Cassius into the 9th Legion. They assumed a Cassius was the power source, but when they went back to Thigh, it signaled that there was still something more powerful inside. When they went back in, everything was different. There was now a big ol' grey one who shot lasers at them and they all died. The end. Okay, but after getting lasered, they were barely clinging to life, even with a Cassius. A lot more monsters started popping out, including the first man on the moon, Ezekiel Zanderfruit. With all these beasts, especially with ol' Zeke, it seemed impossible for the 9th Legion to win. Just then, a large, blue monster appeared and began to fight off all the other monsters. He was having some trouble, so the 9th Legion joined in to help him. Even with that, they were still losing. Just then, Ezekiel Zanderfruit said it was Zanderfruiting time, and he Zanderfruited all over the place, redeeming himself. Him and another monster, Face, joined the 9th Legion and the Blue Monster, yet together they still were overpowered. When it looked like they were about to die, the Blue Monster put on some sunglasses, revealing he was still the best. 1973. He used his still the best, 1973 powers to instantly disintegrate the remaining monsters. Introducing himself as Solomon, he joined Ezekiel and Face in joining the 9th Legion. The 9th Legion used their Syphopedia method again, and eventually found a universe where they appeared to be much smaller. They went in a hole in the ground, but the hole went pretty deep, and after a few misadventures, they found themselves in a sea of void at the bottom of the world. Oops! The Pale King then burst out of a wall, paling all over the place, hitting the 9th Legion. They fought, and while the Pale King was tough, the 9th Legion were still in the lead by a large margin. As the Pale King was dying, he summoned his army of dead children to attack the 9th Legion. They started pelting everyone in the 9th Legion, making them weaker and weaker. After they were weakened, they and the Pale King combined into one being, Greg. Greg ate everything else in the universe, including a big ol' moth, the Void Lord, Yumulyu, the worst boss in the entire game. It is actually infuriating on Ascended and Radiant, and some fools. Greg, now enhanced, launched itself at the 9th Legion in an attack that would surely destroy them. Just then, a little bug thingy with a nail named Life Ender jumped up, slicing Greg in half and absorbing him, saving the 9th Legion. He was Zot the Mighty, a knight of great renown. He taught the 9th Legion his 57 precepts, making them much more powerful, and he joined them. Going back to Thai, they kept using their method, but it was slowly becoming inefficient too. Still though, they managed to find and recruit Thrag's hairline, Thrag's barber, the old empire from Wixo, the music that plays in sub-areas in Super Mario Odyssey, Spider-Man, the Spider-Man from that one music video by The Cure, the E for explicit songs on Spotify, and your mother.